John, you've been involved with Cardiomiracle, formulating products over what appears to be the last probably 20 years, right? How did you get into this whole market? And what fueled your curiosity specifically with Cardiomiracle, as well as your background over the years?
Well, Dr. Joe, essentially I was in the financial for 35 years, had a very successful financial practice, and my own health condition, primarily family genetics of heart disease, and not having taken very good care of myself, I had a crisis 17 years ago where an emergency appendectomy led to multiple complications, and those complications ended up having a recommendation after almost dying 3 times in the hospital from unnecessary complications. They wanted to have me come back and do quadruple bypass. I said, no, I don't think so. I'm not coming back. And that led me on a journey to try to find alternatives to cardiovascular health without doing, sawing your chest open and doing the surgery. So I heard about nitric oxide. This was in 2007. Nitric oxide had been awarded the Nobel Prize in 1998. And so there were some new supplements coming out that used arginine and citrulline, things that generate nitric oxide in the lining of the artery. And I researched it, started taking a supplement from a fine nutritional company, and it reversed all of my cardiovascular markers dramatically. And I felt better, felt younger. So I felt compelled that I should be sharing this science with other people, because I had lost my father at 62, an uncle at 57, an aunt at 65, grandparents in their late 60s, all from heart disease. And so I decided at that point that my final chapter of life would be to be the Johnny Appleseed, an old acronym from Disney back in the day, of nitric oxide, and share that message throughout the world. So I did that for a few years with a very fine company, and kept researching and learning from the top people. And that led me to the dissatisfaction of companies who didn't want to have the best of the best and were willing to invest in the very, very finest. And so I walked away from another multi-million-dollar enterprise after 5 years and decided I needed to start my own. And that's when the Cardiomiracle formulation came together 10 years ago, was introduced to the marketplace. We've improved it 7 times, and we now have published scientific studies of both the in silico and vivo side of the science behind it. We have over 53 ingredients, natural, organic, plant, food-based, multiple ways of supporting the nitric oxide benefits. And we've been on that mission, and we believe that the finest, most educated scientists and health advocates in the country, or in our country, in North American area, and now throughout the world, we're endorsing Cardiomiracle as the superior nitric oxide safe delivery.
That's a great story, and a testimonial to this product, clearly, as it brought you back from quadruple bypass surgery risk, right? So you never actually went through with any of those surgeries?
Never went through, and I've never been on a cardiovascular medication since, in 17 years. And until I went on my intermittent fasting Cardiomiracle diet, the last 4 months, I've finally lost 40 pounds that I've been carrying around for way too long, and on my way down probably another 40. So we're pretty excited about the combination of intermittent fasting, which Cardiomiracle has proven scientifically through 15 million data points to help autophagy. Now, I'm sure most of your listeners know what autophagy is. Autophagy is essentially the ability of the cell to clean out the waste products of the cell. And our scientific study using artificial intelligence showed that our ingredients facilitate autophagy. So not only does the nitric oxide in Cardiomiracle help relax the artery, help heal the arterial inflammation, nitric oxide does, and these other vitamins and minerals, but it also is absorbable into the cell, facilitating autophagy, which means that people like Dr. Christiane Northrup and Ty Bollinger, Brian Artist, Dr. Henry Ely, all of these, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny, et cetera, all of these great advocates for health and alternative are now recommending Cardiomiracle for not only health and immune support and the cardiovascular benefits, but also as a part of a healthy nutritional outbreak to help people with managing their glucose, their blood sugar, those types of things, and then getting good, solid nutrition in the cell from our organic fruits, vegetables, and other key minerals and vitamins in the formula.
John, how do you recommend patients take it on an intermittent fasting protocol? Do you recommend they take it as like a multivitamin at the beginning of the day? And does it influence, you want to stay in ketosis, right? As long as you can, or 0 calories. So how does that influence it?
Well, very good question. We found, as actually Dr. Christiane Northrup, who one of my favorite people, she went on a Cardio Miracle fast for 5 days and said that she's never had a better fast. We know the benefits of fasting for helping to deal with chronic illness and helping the body heal itself. But what was interesting, Dr. Joe, is that they found from the artificial intelligence in dealing with the ingredients and the data points is that taking Cardio Miracle first thing in the morning did not interrupt the intermittent fasting. It actually facilitated it, because it facilitated the autophagy of the recycling of the waste products into glucose in the cell. So it gave people more energy. And then, so we recommend that there's only 30 calories. It's very low glycemic. Now we have kind of a new pure monk fruit with organic stevia as our sweetener. So the profile for glycemic index is fantastic. So people take it in the morning, and then they can take either a meal replacement or, we're actually working on a meal replacement. We think a superfood that's going to be phenomenal as an additional to give people the fiber and the protein and the other natural fruits and vegetables, and then be able to eat a good keto type meal. Seems to be having amazing effects on both healing and wellness and immune system and immune support, but also on weight management. So we're pretty excited about those possibilities. But just the Cardio Miracle, starting your day and finishing your day, gives you the nitric oxide 24/7 that helps facilitate the bioavailability of vitamin D3. And you might find from, I'm sure your extensive research on vitamin D, we actually have a published paper, Frontiers in Nutrition, third most cited scientific journal in the world, published the finding that Cardio Miracle facilitates the bioavailability of the stored vitamin D in the fat cells. That was a breakthrough scientific discovery that this unique formula activates the inert vitamin D stored in the cell. And so that had explained to me why over 17 years of observing nitric oxide and vitamin D together, seeing people's vitamin D levels go up much greater than people mega dosing with drops or even infusions of vitamin D. It's that nitric oxide 24/7 that we've also proven scientifically in the labs that facilitates that, making the bioavailability of the inert vitamin D stored in the cells available and helping to raise people's serum level, which obviously has a dramatic impact on their immune health.
Well, that's a mouthful. I'm going to jump in here. That's a lot. I was going to say, because you're going over, a lot of the science. So I wanted to look in there too, kind of about, are there any clinical trials or studies? I think you'd kind of mentioned that assess the efficacy and safety of the Cardio Miracle.
Well, the good news is, Jackie, is that the Cardio Miracle ingredients, all 53 of them, all have massive amounts of science and validation. Obviously, the malpractice insurance people wouldn't insure certain things if you have products that are not approved. And so we do have all of those approvals of all those ingredients. The interesting thing is that because it wasn't a hobby for me, but it was a mission, not a business. And so I invested in the science because frankly, and I know that our friends in the chiropractic world have been, persecuted and mistreated for decades. And I've been a part of that fight. Actually, my good friend Jeff Hayes and Patrick Gentempo, who both take Cardio Miracle every day, they were the ones who came out with the film Doctor, which is a big deal to the chiropractors, and helping to help people be aware of the crazy amount of alienation that the medical community treated the chiropractors over the decades of the last 50, 70 years. And so I've been a part of their situation and helping support their work in helping to expose that, because I found that, my own chiropractors through the years have been fantastic. I worked with Dr. Craig Bueller, one of the great chiropractors in the country, chiropractor for John Stockton, Charles Barkley, Carl Malone. He straightened out my shoulder years ago after I tried to, on a Thanksgiving football game, make a diving catch. And I had a bad shoulder for about 15 years until I met Craig Bueller. And then we have all kinds. So I have all kinds of great experiences through the years with chiropractic work. And thus that was our desire to get involved more with the American chiropractor and what you're doing. Because we believe in what they add to the nutritional value. When you have people like Brian Artis and Dr. Brad Nelson of the Motion Code, Patrick Gentempo, and on, people who've been on the national board, all endorsing Cardio Miracle, I would think that every chiropractor in America ought to at least try it and look at the science. We have a full money back guarantee, and there is no other nitric oxide product that has our science. And I was just reading today about the horrible dilemma that over 20% of our healthcare dollars is going towards treating diabetes and diabetic situation. We also have another white paper talking about how the ingredients in Cardio Miracle help facilitate going from pre-diabetic to no longer being pre-diabetic. Now, I'm not making a medical claim. I'm just telling you what the scientific paper says. That's what it says. And when we see people that have tremendous reductions in their A1C, their GFR with their kidneys, those types of things, I would think that professionals at the highest level of care, which I believe chiropractors are, might be really interested in something natural that doesn't require somebody taking 35 capsules a day, that they can mix it up in a simple drink and see the benefits for themselves.
Well, I was going to say, I remember I just met you, and I was thinking the joint between the American chiropractor and Cardio Miracle actually stemmed out of all of this stuff coming out of COVID the past few years and all this uncertainty. And so I went out to a couple of different new events, and we went to Stu and Teresa Warner's event earlier in both January. I saw you there, and then I got to meet you really again in April. And both of them, I was been researching the product because obviously cardio health is such a big topic. It's really devastating. I mean, I have a father who's already had a heart surgery, like you mentioned, I don't know if it was a triple, I think it was a triple bypass. It seems to kind of like a rite of passage anymore to be part of the Zipper Club. And that you actually, kind of went away from that is amazing and are living to talk about it. And then, I've never been shy to admit I have a firstborn daughter who thankfully is now 20 years old. She's healthy, but she's had to undergo 3 open heart surgeries. And so the subject matter is very near and dear to my heart. And when I hear you talk about even, having family members who passed away, I have a mother who passed at the very young age of 67. And quite frankly, and I'm pretty confident that your products and a lot more of those that are out there and being offered could be helping ensure much more longevity. And with all the stuff that's going wrong, there's a lot of good stuff going right. And that's what I was so happy to meet you and see your walking testimonial of your product. And obviously, being new to the marketplace, there's a whole lot of noise happening right now. So, just hang in there and be patient. I was going to say, as far as the chiropractors go, I remember you mentioned and done a lot of name dropping. So it sounds like you've got quite a few chiropractors who are already believers if they're using it themselves.
Well, interesting enough, we just are putting a program together for what it's worth with 38,000 physicians that are all going to, on their platform, going to start recommending Cardio Miracle for their foundational immune health and dealing with potential viruses and things coming forward. The immune system's everything. And one of the things that we found is that the nitric oxide and the arginine specific research is showing that it's an arginine deficiency in the body that leads to problems with the blood. The blood is interfacing in the body with the endothelial lining of the capillaries and the arteries. That's what is being attacked by the great spike protein, is the endothelial lining. And so between all of the things that we've experienced in the last couple of years, we've unleashed the spike protein. So the most important thing I believe that a person can do is strengthen and improve the quality of their blood, and then improve the health and vitality of the endothelial lining of the arteries, capillaries, nerve endings, all the organs of the body are lined by an endothelial lining. It's one cell thick. And if that's compromised, then chronic illness results. Nitric oxide has thousands of articles about how it helps strengthen and heal and improve and fight inflammation in the endothelial lining. So we just invite people to do the research. You can go on our website. We have our published studies in our booklets that explain it all. And but anyone who's looking or concerned about some of the heart inflammation issues, sepsis, pericarditis, myocarditis, those types of issues, really ought to take a solid look at the nitric oxide science as a way to help with those types of terrible problems, which are affecting millions of people.
Well, and were you telling me at the show, do I remember correctly, that nitric oxide itself has had a lot of accolades in its history?
Won the Nobel Prize when the Nobel Prize meant something.
I didn't want to misstate that, but that's a big one there.
25 years ago, but it was in medicine and physiology. But then there's over 200,000 studies. And during the past 3 years of craziness we've seen worldwide, the articles coming out of other countries, the research validation, have all come back to nitric oxide and arginine could be helpful. Helpful? Well, of course it's helpful. But now we actually are publishing an article this next month in Combat Stress magazine for all the psychologists and psychiatrists, which talks about the link between arginine deficiency, traumatic brain injury, the issues that people are having with the neurological diseases, the outbreak of Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer. All of these things come back to arginine deficiency. And what nitric oxide does is the precursor of that is arginine and citrulline. And so, we hear a lot about beets. Beets are fine. Beets are like, a bunt single in a baseball game or a nice pass. But the secret to nitric oxide longevity is different types of arginine, citrulline, estrogen, which is astragalus root, panax, ginseng, hawthorn berry, and beets, not just beets. Beets are good, but nitric oxide produced by arginine, citrulline, astragalus root, hawthorn, and beets is even better. And so we have all of those things in our formula, and that's why people are recommending it at the highest levels. You have somebody like Dr. Patrick Gentempo, who really was quite legend. I think he was on the cover of your magazine 20 some odd years ago. Patrick Gentempo said after my interview with him 4 years ago, he said, I can't believe I didn't know more about this. And he's told me since that the Cardio Miracle is his go-to number one supplement that he does not want to miss any day of the week. So those types of things are great. And then when you have others come on board, like Dr. Brad Nelson of the Emotion Code, and you have people like, Dr. Brian Artis and Robert Scott Bell, naturopaths, and then you have people like Christiane Northrup, Sherry Tenpenny, Judy Mikovits, and David Martin. All of these people take the Cardio Miracle. So I would say to your listeners, hey, don't listen to me, but if all those other smart people think it's a good deal, then at least listen to Jack and take what she takes.
So, John, when you were mentioning, frustration of the uptake of this product with the market in general, what we really need is the patients to be taking this for the, not only the chiropractors, of course, the chiropractors. You've got the science.
In the wrong ways.
I know a lot of people who are doing work with peripheral neuropathy and whatnot also like to recommend arginine supplements.
The critical thing for people who followed the protocols, do everything possible to make sure your blood viscosity is at its optimum. And that is as part of oxygenation, vitamins, vitamin D, and nitric oxide. You've got to have adequate nitric oxide in your blood. And that'll also help the endothelial lining which is the thing that's being attacked by the spike protein.
Yeah, and I treat a lot of athletes, and for a product like this, I'd probably recommend it as like almost a pre-workout, considering that it's going to be directly influencing. Yeah.
Far better. One thing to keep in mind, Dr. Joe, and I'm glad to have the conversation with you, it's really important. But one of the things is, caffeine inhibits nitric oxide. So most pre-workouts that have arginine and caffeine, they're getting a brief pump, but the caffeine actually becomes a dehydrator for the microcapillaries, and then you have the inhibition of the nitric oxide. So they get the pump, they get the bump, and then they get the crash. Where with Cardio Miracle, there's no crash. It's just all upside. It's oxygen uptake. The other thing that you would find interesting, edited or not, is the fact that people with pulmonary distress and with their oximeter and those types of things, literally after taking a couple of doses of Cardio Miracle, their oxygen has gone from in the 80s back up into the 90s. We had people that were in the 70s that had family members take the product into the hospital when they could get in, and they literally were able to go from the high 70s to mid 90s and get out of the hospital in 3 days. So there's something about sustained 24/7 nitric oxide and oxygen delivery. And we also have astaxanthin and turmeric and other anti-inflammatories. And that helps the inflammation area, which the major attack of what we saw in the last 3 years started with blood, spike protein, attacking the pulmonary system, shutting down the lungs, then shutting down the kidneys, give them the protocol, which killed half the people in the trial in Africa. And then they put them on a ventilator, 97% of them. I mean, it's horrific. And I believe much of that could have been avoided if, first of all, we would have been allowed to have normal diagnosis of things that had worked, like hydrochloroquine and ivermectin and other things that were very reputable types of remedies. But then if people would have been given arginine in Italy and Israel, and Brazil, people who were given arginine under the issues that they were having with the illness, they all got better. The ones who didn't get it got worse. So that's just arginine. Our formula is balanced with antioxidants, which helps prevent the free radical damage that often occurs with taking too much arginine at one time. If you just take 5 or 10 grams of arginine for a workout, you're going to have a great workout and a great pump, but you're frying your brain with the free radical peroxynitrite. And so our clinical in vitro study in University of Ohio showed that we increased nitric oxide safely for 24 to 36 hours. They had never seen that happen at the cellular basis, but it also reduced the free radical by 50%. And Tadeusz Smolinski, arguably the smartest researcher in the world on nitric oxide, was blown away that this product extended nitric oxide for 24 hours, but reduced the free radical. And he says, you're not smart enough to have figured this out. And I said, I know, I'm on God's errand. I'm not smart enough. But it was the antioxidants that also combined with it that helped knock out the free radicals as the nitric oxide did its job on the endothelial lining.
Well, and I'm going to throw in a couple of things since we went there to the vax. I mean, personally, I'm not vaxxed, but I would say I do have, my other half is. And I mean, we've made it through all of this, but I was going to say I would hate to, if however much people believe about it, but in one way or another, the spike protein, I mean, there's been a lot of research that even that was all manufactured. So the thing is, we're not dealing with natural illnesses anymore. So when you talk about the spike protein, whether we're all either now suffering from long COVID, or we're suffering from the effects of, a manufactured remedy that was supposedly being marketed. And I just thank God that all of my, people in my life who have been are still alive and kicking so far. But what we've been seeing is a lot more issues of tumors and all these other kinds of health issues, and of course, cardio issues and just weird things. I've heard a lot of things that people have told me that since they've had it, even like tinnitus, the ringing in the ears and everything. So just, God only knows we're all kind of this experiment.
They should be taking, if they have taken the injection, they should take 2 to 4 servings a day of Cardio Miracle. That's what Judy Mikovits says. That's what David Martin says. That's what a lot of the top people who are involved in this as a prevention, because they all estimated it was going to start showing its ugly face between 12 and 36 months. And that's what we're seeing now. I mean, my sister died 3 weeks ago. She was vaccinated at the insistence of her doctor's son. And she ended up with pericarditis at 75. She was doing just fine. She only took 1 serving a day of Cardio Miracle. I begged her to take more. I gave it to her for free. But she was worn out. She was tired. Had a lot of raised 13 kids. She was a worn out 75-year-old grandmother of 50 kids, grandkids, and pericarditis immediately turned into sepsis, and she died in 3 days. So there's no question in my mind it was because she was vulnerable enough from everything else that that got to her. But that's just my opinion, and I see it every day. And I'm so sick of going to funerals, I can't even tell you. I've gone to more funerals. It's unbelievable.
I know that was one of the things when I first met you and heard your story. And I know, just having gone through 3 heart surgeries with our own child, wondering what is causing even children being born with all of these types of maladies is not normal. And so I know you're new in the marketplace and everything, but I was like, John, the title, you got Cardio Miracle, and you're a walking testimony for it. So, the world needs a miracle right now. That's for sure. So I'm happy to hear the good testimony.
Well, we're excited about this doctor program, and I actually am bringing somebody on board who's going to help facilitate. And actually, Dr. Fab has started taking Cardio Miracle too. So somebody got to him recently, and we've got a whole bunch of them. So I think I'm going to bring in a specialist who's had lots of, I'm sure people that you would know, and we're going to wrap up the business side, because the chiropractors, they can make far more money recommending a product that people will continue to take than they sell them supplements every time they see them every 6 months or 12 months or whatever, and then lose that business to someone else. We're going to try to protect. We're going to have a health practitioner product by the first of the year, and a lot of other things that should make it very dynamic for people to see the benefits. But the doctors who use it, we have actually a doctor in Houston that is going through, he's selling over $100,000 a month through his clinic because the results are so astounding. So the results speak for themselves, which is nice, as opposed to most supplements. People don't have a clue whether it's really helping them or not.
Right. Well, and I do think that is definitely something that coming out of all of this through COVID, whichever side people took, whether they did or didn't get a shot or whatever, everybody right now has a heightened sense of awareness that they've got to be doing more than just, whatever we did before COVID. Now we're all like taking something now. I mean, heck, I think I've had even friends and family who've had problems from overdosing on certain things because we're dangerous sometimes. So that's what I liked about your product, is that it's very all-encompassing and whole food based. And as I understand, they're even recommended for children with special disabilities, which is very delicate subject. So
we're seeing some very interesting results in the neurological issues of those on the spectrum, those with seizures, those with adult injuries, concussions, traumatic brain accidents. That's what the article in Combat Stress is all about, is the neurological benefits of extended safe nitric oxide. And that's going to be breakthrough stuff in the next little while. And that's actually Stanford Graham is writing that article that he sent to you guys. I said, you should be able to at least put a link to our research and whatever. I mean,
definitely. But yes, absolutely. You can do that.
Really should, because
that's the citation. That's the citation. We want those. We want the annotated bibliography with the citation. Absolutely.
Well, there's got 4 articles that are worth reading. And so you maybe just at the end of the article, it will just put, for more information on some current nitric oxide research in the last 4 years or whatever. Here are the following articles. Well, because they're scientific studies. They're scientific.
Right. Yeah. Well, they make a statement. They make, it's been proven that that arginine is increased immediately following consumption, and then you put the 1, and then you put the reference at the bottom, and it becomes a hot link too. So we're gonna do that.
Do that. If you would help us do that, that's great. I'll mention to Stan that he should work with it on that, because he's a great resource, and he's doing some beautiful research. Well, the only person who shouldn't be taking it is somebody who really has a death wish and would like to die sooner. But
That's a strong pitch right there, John. If you can take it, but you can opt to not if you prefer to die younger.
People say to me all the time, how long do I have to take it? I said, only as long as you want to be upright. That's probably the only thing, the only criteria. There is disputed medicine on, I guess it comes back to, if you're taking a blood thinner, which I believe is poison, then you don't want something that makes your blood viscosity better. You're trying to have it as thin as possible so you can have hematomas and bleeding and bruising and agony every time you cut yourself. But for some reason, our medical system has determined that blood thinners are the solution to arterial plaque. And it actually makes it worse because the Coumadin, the warfarin, et cetera, is so toxic, it actually inflames the endothelial lining. So because you're essentially putting Drano in your blood that's then interfacing with the most sensitive organ in the body, which is the endothelial lining of the artery. So it's like the red dye, the contrast dye that people give people to find out they have a heart problem. Well, there's a 5% mortality with the stupid dye. The dye is radioactive. Why would you put anything radioactive in your body? And so it's like burning down the forest to find one standing tree. It's just, it's idiotic. And you know that, doctor.
The industrial medical complex is completely, when you try to understand it logically, John, it's a trap. Yeah, you can't win that. And chiropractors have been fighting that because they're always trying to fit us into that medical model. They want us to use their language so that then they can explain it in their terms, but it could never fit because it's a rigged game. It's like you don't do it. You just opt out. That's what you have to do.
The only thing sometimes is because we do have so many vitamins and minerals, and it's more bioavailable. There are some people that have some toxicity with certain types of vitamins, and of course this does help the MTHFR situation. We've tried to use the ingredients that are best for those, but occasionally we'll have somebody who'll say, well, I have a horrible allergy to stevia, or I have a terrible allergy to silica, or whatever. Those are the rare things, but generally speaking, across the board, we're really very comfortable. Our scientists are. They're giving it to their kids, their grandkids, they're giving it to all kinds of things. There's no long-term studies on whether or not if you enhance the nitric oxide through supplementation, if that's going to inhibit the body's ability to do it. But we do know, you see somebody like myself at 70, in my 72nd year, and I'm going 18 hours a day, and I go get 3 hours of sleep, and then I'll drive 800 miles round trip in a single day. My kids are blown away. And the reality is, if I would have done a better job with my diet and everything over the last 20 years, which I've been too busy to do, if I was doing what I'm doing now, I'm seeing a whole new version of myself, which is wonderful. But the crazy part is I took my blood pressure 2 months ago. I was doing a stem cell thing for a particular reason I wanted to deal with. And my blood pressure was 104/64. No medication. And at that time, yes, I was still over 300 pounds and had a family history of cardiovascular disease. So, the proof's in that pudding, but of course, not everybody looks as good as Jackie does, or you, Dr. Joe. But the reality is sometimes our inner self isn't as good as our outer self. And so we need to make sure we're taking care of the inner self. So I'm thrilled to have the chance to have this conversation. And literally, if we did something like this and stayed on task or script or various things, so we don't get into medical claims and all that kind of stuff, I think we could be successful. This is what we need.
Absolutely.
Get video out, because just like yourself, Joe, I'm sure you thought Cardio Miracle was a nice idea. You probably think a little differently now. So.
Oh, well, absolutely. I'm convinced on all the science that you're talking about, John. So,
Eddie, just articles and you'll be blown away, and you really, really want to figure out how we can educate your fellow workers, because they will have more definable results from this supplement than anything they've ever done.
John, baby, I'm an editor. You just send me the articles and I'll read them. It's nice that way.
Dr. Joe, though, he's a very critical reader. He's very critical. That. So for you to hear him saying that he's right behind all that science that you've been.
We love that. My favorite thing is smart people. I don't like dumb people. I like smart people. And the reality is, the smarter the person, the more they understand this, and they go crazy over it. That Judy Mikovits is like on steroids everywhere she goes, talking about it. And David Martin's, he's more egotistical, but he's the smartest man I've ever met. And he recommends it everywhere he goes to anyone who's in any kind of a chronic situation who wants to build their immune system. So, I'll stand by the smart guys and then try to deal with the intermediate ones the best I can.
That's our readership, is the smart guys. And that's why we're continuously educating them. And that's why we need to be presenting them with this information and the new products, the new opportunities that exist for their patients. Honestly, chiropractors become chiropractors really because they're called, just like you're called, Joe.
They are.
And it's because, it's like they're walking backwards into the deal. It's like, well, someone's got to do it, right? And they're enthusiastic, but it's like, because they see what you've seen with these deficiencies in the medical system. It's not attending the patient and the patient-centered model. And it's, someone's got to do it. And so we need vendors like you with these products that are, groundbreaking and going to be transformative for the next 100 years. So I appreciate you coming on our show here, John.
Really quick before we close up, I wanted to go over a few things because there is a whole long list of great topics. I wanted to make sure, and I know we've touched on some.
I'm good.
Yep. But I wanted to make sure, of course, we've already talked about, obviously for chiropractors, helping the patients is great income opportunity. You were mentioning a doctor in Texas, I think, of making just alone on extra supplements. How much more is that? It's coming through just by selling this to his patients.
Well, according to his orders, he's probably making over $50,000 a month. Wow. From recommending this throughout a couple of series of his small clinics. Our average chiropractor, wellness professional, probably an extra $3,000 to $5,000 a month or more, depending on how much they advocate. If they work with us and help set up a good web presence with the science, maybe do an email blast out to all their customers, and then at the same time have some product on hand for themselves. The good news is, if they buy it through the doctor's office or on the doctor's landing page or link, then that customer's safe to them forever, with the only exception being Amazon, which we have no control over what Amazon does. But the reality is, we sell on Amazon at full price. And so if the doctor can, give people 5 or 10% off, and plus our subscription program is substantial savings. There's ways the doctors can make money, but our retention on most of our customers is over 2/3 to 70%, which is shocking. And so it becomes a very sticky residual income opportunity for professionals.
Great. And I'm going to bullet point really quick, a bunch of bullet points you sent me to make sure that we get it all in the right coverage here. You mentioned about benefits of patients for long haul COVID, meaning whether they got the vax, whether they didn't, if they got the COVID, if they didn't. Tell me about the Cardio Miracle with that patient base.
Long haul COVID is some semblance of, because the origin and all of the aspects of the disease, spike protein and even the protocols are still somewhat being argued in a lot of areas. The most important part of the symptoms of what I believe in long haul COVID types of things are essentially a suppression or an inflammatory condition created within the immune system. And the ingredients of Cardio Miracle are specifically targeted to increase the vitamin D, the bioavailability and absorption of vitamin C, the zinc, the magnesium, all the things that we heard about as having successful protocols during the last 3.5 years. All of those things are essentially, pardon the term, on steroids because of our 24/7 delivery of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is like adding a fire hose to a garden hose, and as opposed to just taking random supplements to try to help solve these different problems. Nitric oxide opens up the capillary wall to the mitochondria to deliver the turmeric, the astaxanthin, the psyllium, selenium, all of those types of things are being able to be delivered through the impact of 24/7 nitric oxide, which is what Cardio Miracle proved in the laboratory scientific report 3.5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Well, and let me see here too. We mentioned about brain injury. You have science to back all those topics up as well.
We're currently doing some serious research where you have an article coming out in Combat Stress Magazine to all psychologists, psychiatrists, I think throughout the world. We're getting unbelievable response from the heads of that research at our research, which shows that there's an arginine deficiency in those neurological problems. And then we also know that that there's an inflammatory process. Whenever you have problems with the neurological system, the brain and other things, you have inflammation. And that inflammation leads to the different theories about amyloid proteins accumulating, waste products accumulating, the brain suffocating under, this toxic waste. Well, the autophagy discovery of Cardiomiracle specifically, and its impact on helping the cell get rid of the recycling of the waste, and the common sense effect that also would be very applicable to a chiropractor, that the lymphatic system strengthens its contraction with nitric oxide. Not only does your blood vessel dilate and increase blood flow, but your lymphatic system becomes a stronger contraction, so it can help eliminate the problems with the toxic waste throughout your entire body by helping to strengthen the lymphatic system.
Mm-hmm. Wow, so many things. And of course, we've already talked a lot about the myocarditis, any kind of other health issues. It's a cardio miracle. So of course, anybody who you see who's basically suffering from a lot of these different injuries, some brain, of course, you'd mentioned cardio, you got recovery from athletic injury, joint replacements, periodontal disease. So basically anybody who's got a body, like you said, could be benefited.
It sounds almost ridiculous, but it really is all about capillaries. It's all about the system, the lymphatic system, the capillary system, the neurological system, and all of those end up having inflammation issues or compromised or abrasion issues, which is where spike protein and other things, acidic, when people are overly acidic versus alkaline, that damages the endothelial lining. And so whatever you can do to help heal the endothelial lining and keep it being able to be the body's traffic cop and regulate, which is what it is. Most people aren't aware of that. I didn't know anything about the endothelial lining 10 years ago. So it's really important to keep a healthy endothelial lining as your interface between the lifeblood of your body, which is literally the blood.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing. So I'm trying to think, Dr. Joe, if I've covered a lot here. I wanted to go make sure, though, that we're so happy, John, to have you on. Dr. Joe, I'm glad you're here to oversee everything and guide all of us. We'll be, I'm sure, lining up with everybody else, too.
John, thanks for coming in and meeting with us here. And I can't wait to talk to you again. We should set it up again for the next quarters.
Why don't you come to Phoenix in a month and hang out with us if you can get away from the office. So.
Oh, that would be outstanding. Yeah, I'll have to look at my calendar. It might be a little...
Dr. Stu and Terry Warner's event in the end of November, because this is a podcast. So when people listen to it, in case we refer to these deadlines, we got to make sure it's 2023.
Right. Well, November 2023, right?
Yeah. I'm grateful to have a chance to be able to share the nitric oxide story with the chiropractors of your system. I believe chiropractic care is essential. I think you are the great treatment, truth seekers, and caregivers of our medical society. And I developed and have invested my life's efforts now in developing the finest nitric oxide supplement in the world that can assist you in all the things you're trying to do to help the health and wellness of your patients.